Had my first daughter when I was 22. A bit of a wake-up call, yeah. So he'd kind of give me pointers, and I'd post something, and maybe if I did something a little weird, he might message me and be like, "Hey, man, like maybe try this next time, and you might find it'll lay a little smoother because like Chas is like his name says, the foam wizard. Like
Yeah.
he can lay some butter too."
Welcome to Foam to Fortune, the ultimate podcast for spray foam insulation industry. Whether you're a contractor aiming to take your business to the next level or a vendor bringing innovation to the market, this is the place where success stories are shared, insider tips are uncovered, and the industry secrets are revealed. Join us as we dive into the journeys of the spray foam pros who turn their dreams into thriving empires and discover tools and strategies to build your own path to fortune. Ready to elevate your spray foam game? Let's get started. Foam to Fortune, where innovation meets inspiration. What's up, everybody? I'm Spencer, your host of the Foam to Fortune podcast. And today I have a really special guest for you, Trevor Cochrane. He is the lead sprayer at A&J Insulating up there just north of us in Canada. And he has always been one of my biggest fans. And you guys may know him for spraying some serious butter. That Gen X, that Hulk foam. What's up, Trevor? How are you, man?
I'm good, man. How's it going?
It's going, man. Welcome to the show. Happy to have you here. Why don't you tell us who Trevor is, man? Give us a little bit of background.
Yeah, for sure. So my name's Trevor. I'm from Prince Edward Island, Canada, little island just on the East Coast. I grew up here. I didn't always live here, but we moved here when I was young. So then I just kind of always been around construction.
Mm-hmm.
And then like my stepfather, he had a contracting business. He built cottages and some houses, and I'd help out on the weekends and things like that. And then things just gradually progressed in life, and I found myself doing some bat and poly, and then did that for a bit, kind of after school weekends, just for some extra cash, and then moved into after school. I just didn't know what I wanted to do, and kind of, you start partying and having a little too much fun sometimes, and then just kind of found myself back insulating again, and just kind of kept chugging along, and then had some kids. Had my first daughter when I was 22, so
Wow.
that was kind of a big deal. So
That is a big deal,
it was
especially when you're a
a little
young
bit of
man.
a wake up call. Bit of a wake up call, yeah. So kind of started to kind of get my shit together a bit, and it's time to grow up. I got another human I have to support now, so I just kind of then I became a foreman doing bat and poly. I had a crew of about 4 or 5 guys. We'd go smash out a house in a day, doing all the fiberglass. We do vapor barrier, and then wait till the drywall's done, and then an attic truck would show up, and the attic guys would blow it in, and yeah. So then I think in 2017 we decided, I think it was enough was enough on subbing all this. We were getting a lot of calls for like getting the rim joists in the basements done on homes that we were doing the fiberglass on, and just stuff. So we'd sub it out and things like that. We just like, why don't we get our own gear? Like, we're giving money away basically. Like, why don't we get something and we'll give it a shot for spray foam? So that was 2017, and then we had a bit of a boom, and we got way too busy, so we couldn't do our certification courses. So kind of we parked the rig in the shop, and just there it sat until we had a free moment, really, to do our certification. So
Yeah.
then we did that, and then I was actually supposed to just be a like kind of a substitute sprayer, just if somebody was sick, like a backup basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, so we moved on doing that for a little bit, and things were tough at the start, and like our rig, we got sold with a dead 10-foot whip on the end, so that was a bit of a learning curve, because where I'm at, for us to get parts is kind of like we have to ship it in, so nothing really close. Like
Yep.
Ontario or Quebec might be the closest, and they're like an 8 hour drive plus the closest place, right? So to get parts, we have to order, and they're about a week out usually. So
Mhm.
we were a little bit trying to get our first jobs done with like an unheated last 10 feet of hose. So not knowing what we're doing with like kind of iffy stuff was a little tricky, but we made it through. And then yeah, I just kind of I got to a point where I was tired of being itchy doing the bat poly. So so
Funny, man.
that now I really liked it. I don't know what it was. It was different, something different. It was I didn't have four other people I had to keep my eye on, make sure so and so's working and we're getting stuff done. It was just me. Whatever I was spraying was what was getting done. And it was just kind of a little more relaxing almost,
Hmm.
but then a lot more mentally like tolling, I guess. It was like a lot more like I'm not just shoving something in the wall and go to the next one. I have to spray and then, oh, that looks weird. What happened there? And oh, we better adjust this. And you're kind of new. You're just playing with things, and you're oh, that got worse. Maybe I screwed something up? Or then all of a sudden you hear a weird noise out of the machine. You're like, is that normal? Like I don't know. You're like looking at your partner with you, and oh man, like what was that? Like, oh, geez, like, you stay here for a second. I'm gonna go spray and see if it does it again.
Yeah.
And yeah, I enjoyed it. So I looked at I was actually supposed to be training my helper now. I was supposed to train him to spray so that he could spray. And I just kind of looked at him. I was like no offense, but I kind of like this too much to just teach you for so I can go back and do bat and poly. I'm gonna take this. Like, are you okay with that? And he was like, yeah. He's like, that's cool with me. So then I was like, all right, well, let's roll with this. So that's when I started to really give a shit and kind of
Hmm.
just try to do better and see how we could improve from yesterday. And then I think it was around that time that we found the Spray Foam Worldwide group.
Yeah.
Honestly, I I can't say I'd be where I'm at with my work without that group. Just
Great group.
people, the people in that group, like you can, if you're having troubles with your equipment, you can literally type a question in, and while you're messing with things, your phone will ping a few times. You check it, and you have 4 or 5 answers that you can try out right there on the fly. Like, and you don't have to do nothing but whip out Facebook real quick and then carry on with what you're doing. And it was just things like that the training that we got when we first started, that wasn't something that we knew, right? So there's all these little, like just little finicky things about foam that's kind of hard to cram into their our training that we have up here. But that group has definitely been a savior many times for me. I can assure that.
Yeah, I was joking, Trevor, and say you guys are like mad scientists, because you're like in your lab and you guys have so much um, that is different. You know, you're going off of humidity, you're going off of temperature, you're going like all these variations, and you're like dialing
Yeah.
in the machines, and you're like spray a little bit, and you're like, oh, got to go dialing in some more, and it sounds to me like you're self taught. Is that correct?
This episode is sponsored by Spray Foam Genius Marketing. Are you a spray foam contractor looking to get more leads and boost your presence on Google? We've got you covered. At Spray Foam Genius Marketing, we help business owners like you take their company to the next level with targeted leads, high converting websites, SEO optimization, Google My Business Management. If you're in the US, call us at 877-840-FOAM. Or if you're in Canada, call 844741-FOAM. Or you can just email us at info@sprayfoamgeniusmarketing.com. Spray Foam Genius Marketing, turning clicks into customers.
And it sounds to me like you're self taught. Is that correct?
Yeah, basically. So I've had my training, my 3-day training course in 2018, and then we have to renew it every 5 years. So I just actually did mine last year. But then, yeah, I did my training, and then it was just kind of all trial and error up
Mhm.
until I found spray foam real wide, and then like I'd post some stuff, and you get people being like, "Oh, that kind of looks weird," like something like kind of criticize you, which is good because like that's kind of like what you need. Because if nobody tells you you're doing something wrong, how are you supposed to know you're going to fix it? Like
True.
if you
There
post a video you spraying and someone's like, "Oh, that's off ratio," or if somebody doesn't know what off ratio foam looks like and they're spraying it, like that's off ratio, and then you have 9 different people saying the same thing, then somebody can learn that, oh, that's off ratio. Or if, hey, I'm having trouble making my foam look flat, like here's a video of how I'm spraying, maybe somebody can give me some tips. Or they'll be like, oh, your gun's filthy, like clean that thing. Like I see it all the time, like, oh, what the hell did you do,
Yeah.
dip it in foam? Like some of the things you see are can get pretty dirty. But yeah, it's just it's yeah, pretty yeah.
Yeah, for sure, man. So you've been in the business for like 15 years, which is extremely impressive, you guys. If you look at Trevor, obviously he's not in his 50s. He's still a young man. Trevor, I think you told me you're 32. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So he's been like, this is the only thing that you know is insulation. And for the last 5 years, you've been spraying foam. And for those that don't know, Trevor loves to post out videos on his socials, and we'll have an opportunity for him to drop those at the end of the show. But that's one thing that I really like. Anytime I see his videos or his photos, dude, the comments of it is about how do you get such smooth, like perfect looking foam? You know, obviously one of the slangs is butter, right? That's butter. You know, you spray Genek, you got the green foam. They call it what, the Hulk juice.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how do you get such, I know there's a lot of people that probably follow you that wonder, how do you get it to look so good?
Yeah. So basically, that's a loaded question. Um, there's a lot of things that can go into that.
Yeah.
Um, it basically all starts from the moment you get your foam from whoever's shipping it. It all comes down to, are you storing your material properly? Because it can't drop below 15 degrees Celsius for storage temperature, which I think is
Mhm.
about 50 Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
So yeah, like there's storage temperatures that you want to keep your material. And then there's actual like processing temperatures for when you're actually going to spray. Um, so yeah, like in Canada, we kind of track everything right down from like our batches of foam. So like the lot numbers of A side and B side and all that stuff. So basically we keep track of everything, and then you kind of learn. So say if today was 10 degrees Celsius and we sprayed today, you kind of, oh, that didn't work out as good. So then over time I'd say, okay, well let's try maybe a little more pressure today and less heat. So we try that, and okay, that looks a little better. And then we'd and doing density tests is another big thing. So that's another big one to make sure that your foam is good, like not just looks good, because you can have bad foam look good and
Yeah.
good foam look bad, because in the end it is insulation. So
I remember seeing Sean from Genek
yeah.
at the Vegas show, and he was showing everybody how to do the density test. And I'm kind of shocked how many people don't actually do density tests.
Yeah, well, that was actually a shocker for me too, because I had posted a video on one of my TikToks, because people always ask like, how do you get your foam so good? And like I do multiple density tests a day just to make sure like that I'm in that window for my foam. because every foam has a specified minimum density. So you don't want to go below that because then you're not going to achieve the properties of your foam
Yeah. So it
or
affects
that your foam says.
the R value.
Yeah, it'll affect your R value. It'll affect your yield. It can
Mhm.
affect adhesion. So
Yep.
if you spray your foam and you spray it way too hot, it'll pop off. You'll like you
Pull it
can
away from the stud.
like yeah. So if we're spraying in the wintertime up here and we don't have heat, sometimes like the substrate can be too cold and
Mhm.
you have no choice but to spray the foam at such a temperature that when you spray it, it thermally shocks itself and it just lets go. So you could be spraying and then spray probably 20 feet of wall and you're on the other side of a garage or something, and all you hear is pop. And you can hear that over your mask, and you're like,
No.
well,
Time to redo it,
so
right?
yeah, it's gotta come out.
So so tell us a little bit more of your tricks, because I know when you and I chatted pre-show, you're
Yeah.
talking about sometimes you'll spray this way, sometimes you'll spray this way. You're going off of, is it feel that you're going off of, or is it
So,
experience? Is it a little bit of everything?
a little bit of everything. So for me, I found what helped me get good was when I found Spray Foam Worldwide was I'd watch other people's posts. Like you learn who posts a lot and like you start noticing like who's got nice foam. So then I would watch people's videos and be like, oh man, that guy's like holding his trigger down, just spraying the whole cavity. Like I want to try that. So then maybe the next day I go try it and be like, oh, that's not working out. Maybe try flipping the gun because like sometimes like for me it's rare that you have a fully circle pattern.
Mhm.
Like that's a the holy grail of the day. If you can achieve that, then you're a lucky person.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so you can have a pattern where it's like two fists sometimes, or it just looks weird. So you just gotta turn it and kind of just try different things.
Mhm.
That's another thing. Like adjust your temperatures, try different pressures, maybe try a different size chamber. That can sometimes make a world of difference for people. Like we started out when I started spraying, we started with a 42 chamber, which would be an O1 chamber.
Okay.
And then there was an O2 chamber, which is it's like a bit bigger, a lot
Mhm.
more output and just a little less control on that when you're new. So we kind of started with trying to fight with both of those and was it was kind of not working out with the O2 because it was almost like too much foam coming out at once and just it was a mess. Like I remember one of our first jobs. It was an old farmhouse, like 150-year-old house. Um, we sprayed the whole thing, walls, roof line, right up to the peak, everything. So we were new. There was, I think, 5 of us that got certified, and we're like, we'll all go and we'll all have a crack at it, kind of get some gun time and get the hang of stuff. And so we started spraying from the top down. So after the first day, we got the top floor done. We're like, well, we'll leave the scraping until we're done. So then
Mhm.
that was our first mistake here,
Uh-oh.
leaving the scraping.
Okay.
Um, because that was we used the O2 chamber, which was not much control for us.
Mhm.
And we were new, so it was hard for us not to hit the studs.
Yep.
And the old studs, it was the old rough cut lumber, which is a nightmare to
Not
get foam
straight.
off of.
It's
Just
like the
just
studs this, right?
glues, and it's all like fuzzy and rough, and foam just glues to that. So whenever you're trying to scrape it, it can be a nightmare. So it took
Yeah.
us, I think, 3 or 4 days of spraying. We got it sprayed, and then the cleanup started. Well,
Oh, no.
I think I was there for one day, and then I had to go back and help on the bat and poly crew. But the guys, the two main guys that were our foamers at the time, they were also new. I think it was 4 16-hour days of chipping foam and scraping and cleaning and Oh man, it was a tiring, very unprofitable situation for
Yeah.
the company at that point. We learned a lot of lessons for sure. We learned to just set the O2 chamber aside until we kind of figured out what was actually going on
Hmm.
and kind of got the hang of some things. And not to leave the scraping
Yeah.
for very long. Like even a day is too long. I
Okay.
think
You guys,
if you're
you
not
guys scrape
scraping
the same
right
day?
behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
so
guys
we
scrape the same day
what
now?
I like to do is I'll spray and my helper will scrape pretty much right behind me. Like he'll be 20 feet behind me and scrape and bag stuff up. We got a pretty good system, but
Yeah.
it took a little bit to get to that system. But yeah, it's learning curves everywhere. That's the big thing.
For sure, man. For sure. But it sounds to
Mm,
me, you've been doing it long enough that you have a good system. I know everybody's always commenting on your foam.
yeah.
That's like one of the big things that whenever I think of good sprayers, guys that have nice looking foam. Now, I do know that there is nice looking foam, or there's properly insulated homes that don't look as nice. That
Yeah.
people, it's just not as smooth like what you like to spray. I'm curious, is there anybody that like when you'd mentioned you'd jump on Spray Foam Worldwide, you watch a lot of really good sprayers videos. Is there anybody in particular that kind of as a mentor that you looked up to?
Yeah, actually. So there was one man in particular I kind of was watching, and I'd see him post all the time and stuff. And I just we had switched materials, and I was having just some weird technical problems, and it was just like just weird things I was finding, like weird chunks in my screens and stuff that I didn't want to go to the manufacturer with, like, because I didn't want to, like, we just switched and I didn't want to go like, hey, I'm finding problems with your product, right? Like kind of didn't want to be
Dude, you're
that
a new
guy.
guy.
So yeah, so I kind of wanted to like maybe just figure it out on my own. So I reached out to Chas Costa, the
Mhm.
foam wizard.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
and
As an
I kind of
OG.
yeah, I just kind of asked him, I just like, hey man, if you have a second, I just have some questions. Like you've been around a while. Like you kind of seem like you know what you're doing. You seem like you probably be the guy to ask.
Mhm.
And yeah, I just kind of asked some questions, and then just kind of just from there, we're just kind of chat maybe a couple times a month, and then just kind of grew into a little bit of a friendship. And yeah, he'd kind of give me pointers, and I'd post something, and maybe if I did something a little weird, he might message me and be like, "Hey, man, like maybe try this next time," and you might find it'll lay a little smoother because like Chas is like his name says, it's the foam wizard. Like
Yeah.
he can lay some butter too.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I would say he's been the number one factor in my success in this industry for sure. He's taught me a lot, not even just spraying, but like fixing fixing the equipment, like
Mhm.
technical issues on that. Like he knows everything, it seems. Like he'll get you an answer.
This episode is sponsored by Spray Foam Genius Marketing. Are you a spray foam contractor looking to get more leads and boost your presence on Google? We've got you covered. At Spray Foam Genius Marketing, we help business owners like you take their company to the next level with targeted leads, high converting websites, SEO optimization, Google My Business Management. If you're in the US, call us at 877-840-FOAM. Or if you're in Canada, call 844741-FOAM. Or you can just email us at info@sprayfoamgeniusmarketing.com. Spray Foam Genius Marketing, turning clicks into customers.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
A lot of us know Chaz. Chaz is, I feel like, from what I know of Chaz and and my interactions with him, he'd give you the shirt off his back.
Oh yeah, he's a
And
great
he wants
guy.
to see people successful in this business. I know he's not spraying every day these days now that he's with Ambient, but
Mm.
I know that relationship's probably still there with you. Is there anybody else that like the videos that you were looking at that you can remember?
Yeah, I'd watch Brett Gunn also. He was another guy. He's a fellow Canadian.
Yep.
Um,
Also won a
just
spray off. He's a spray off award
yeah,
winner of 2024 in Vegas. Got a
yeah,
belt buckle.
yeah, big old Texas buckle. But
Yep.
yeah, he sprays very well. He was always a guy to watch, like just kind of watch like how he's spraying, um, like just kind of how far away he is, maybe just that's kind of like what I watch when I'm watching people, like just kind of like not picking them apart, but just kind of trying to see like
Yeah.
how I can even improve myself. Like even to this day, that's what I do. Scroll through Facebook when I get home from work and watch foam videos. Like thankfully I have a good wife and she doesn't yell at me for just
Being on
scrolling
your
my phone
phone.
because yeah,
No, that's
yeah,
that's great, man. So shout out to Brent Gunn and Chaz Costa.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. They're
perfect.
definitely two two people that I can say for sure that I watched and learned some things from for sure.
It's amazing. I've been part of this community only for a short few years. And the one thing that is consistent is people always, for the most part, wanting to help everybody out. Yeah, there's some assholes out there. There's people that are going to talk shit on these, Facebook groups. But for the most part, I think that a lot of people want to help each other, and make
Yeah,
people better business owners or better sprayers or whatever the case is. You just have to kind of put up with some of that crap. But like you said, you want people to call you out a little bit. That's just who you are. Some people
yeah,
might take that a little bit personal, but for you, it's what's made you amazing at your job.
yeah, yeah. That's it's because if you like I say, if somebody's not telling you you're doing something wrong, how are you supposed to know? Like especially in my case where I don't have like I was kind of learning on the fly, like it just me and my cell phone
Yeah.
at one point. So
Literally stuck on an
that's
island, you guys. Literally stuck on
yeah,
an island.
yeah,
So it's not like you can have like, a buddy down the road just come and show you because you guys, from my understanding, you're in kind of a little bit of a rural area. You said you didn't have
yeah.
not much major cities close to you.
No, like it's the smallest province in the country, so we don't have a very big population. Like it's not a very big place. Like I'd say from where I'm at, if I drive an hour and a half either direction, like one way or the other, I'm gonna hit the ocean.
Yeah.
So it's a small place. It's a very like the companies that are here, like we don't really intermingle very much. Like they're very closed off to each other. It
Mhm.
seems like it's very competitive
Okay.
because
So
of the small place.
nobody's sharing tips and tricks.
No,
Yeah.
no. There's a few. We got a few people from Trinity Insulation. They have a big outfit in the Maritimes. I know a few of them.
Mhm.
Dave George actually works there. If you know Dave George,
Yeah.
he's a good buddy of mine.
I think he got stuck, if I remember correctly, up there before the 2024 SPFA show. He got
Yeah,
stuck at the border. They wouldn't let him fly or
yeah,
ship in, and he was on
yeah.
Spray Foam
Flagged
Worldwide.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know him personally, but I've just seen him ranting about that, and seems like a good dude.
Oh yeah, he's a good fellow. That's for sure. He's a hoot.
Yeah, for sure, man. Trevor, let's chat about your biggest project and what's that?
Yeah.
What was that like?
So that would be, I just actually completed my biggest project last summer. It was my biggest and probably most complicated at the same time. It was about a 20,000 square foot police headquarters building. We had to spray 5 inches of closed cell foam on the exterior, like all the exterior walls. It was a concrete block building.
Yeah.
Um, and the architect, while it was being drawn up, had wanted a vapor barrier on the concrete before the foam. And like closed cell spray foam, you get a vapor barrier at 2 inches, and we're spraying 5 inches of foam. So we had done everything we could to try to talk them out of putting a vapor barrier on.
Mhm.
And originally they wanted a spray applied vapor barrier, which I jokingly said to my boss, I was like, well, that's what we're doing after is
Yeah.
foam. I was like, that's technically, if you want to get technical.
Yep.
But yeah, they wanted a spray on something, which we don't do any of that. So we were gonna say no to the job. And then I had been talking to Genic, our supplier, and we kind of talked to them, and they said, well, maybe we can get them to switch the product to something else. So we got it switched to a 3M membrane.
Okay.
And they didn't really apply the membrane very good when they did do it. So that was another big concern for us whenever we were about to spray the job was, so we had to make sure our foam would stick to this membrane. So we had to do a bunch of test patches and stuff. And we were doing like 4x8 pieces on the side of the building. So we originally did that first before they even did the membrane, just to see like if this will work at all, because because of spray foam worldwide, I had talked to a few people who had done similar styles of projects, and they were having failures upon failures, like sheets of foam just falling off the walls and stuff. And it just, everything was pointing towards like, this is a bad idea to do this job. And yeah, it's just everything in my training was like, you don't spray to vapor barriers because foam's a vapor barrier. So it
Yeah.
just immediately, just everything just was weird about it. Just maybe not feel confident.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we did these test patches. Genic came out. They had people come actually do their fancy tests, give the building the okay. Like, yeah, everything passed, which was good. And then winter happened, which
Oh,
happens in Canada. And I think they might have missed the memo on that. So trying to spray foam outside is can be tough in the summer, let alone minus 20 degrees Celsius and wind and snow. Like it's just all the conditions that you don't want when you're spraying foam. So they had one wall ready for us, and it just wasn't possible to do in the winter. So we called it off. Then spring hit, and they decided to go just crazy on this membrane. And they were putting it on, and walls were wet underneath, and there's like bubbles, like huge bubbles where it's like not even stuck to the wall. So we're then again back to square one of, is this even possible?
yeah.
Because like I'm looking at bubbles where it's clearly not stuck anymore. I'm rubbing my hand on it and it's just coming off. And if you spray foam to that, it's going to pull out because
Yeah.
it's going to pull it right off. So then we're back to, can we do this job? So we told the the people building it, like, we can't spray that until we get an okay that the 3M is going to stay on the wall, because
Yeah.
we got the okay that the foam will stay to the 3M membrane. But now we're worried, is their stuff going to stay on? Because if their stuff doesn't stay on, ours is coming with it,
Hmm.
because that's just how the system worked. So there's a bunch of back and forth, I guess, between the higher ups, and they ended up getting some representatives from 3M actually down, and they did some intricate tests on on their product, and they gave it the green light. So there we went, and it was a tough one because, like I said, it's all exterior. The first day we went to go do stuff, we went to go on the roof, and there was like a couple roof accesses. They were just like maybe 20 by 10 feet, and we just had to spray all the way around them. So the site supervisor was going to show us. So I was like, okay, we'll go get a look at it before we start. Go walk up and open the door to the roof, walk around the corner, and the entire roof was already layered with solar panels for the building.
Beef.
So I was like, are you serious? He's like, well, it's gonna, it should be okay. And I was like, we'll have to cover them. Like, it's gonna have to be covered. He's like, oh, really? Like, that stuff will go that far. I was like, we have to enclose ourselves in,
Yeah, let me
or
show you my
it'll be,
let me show you my shoes.
yeah,
My
like
boots.
it'll be on every car in the neighborhood. Um, so yeah, we covered this mass amount of godly expensive solar panels, and we just prayed that the wind stayed low that day, and we lucked out. Nothing got on, and then we started the outside of the building, and it was it was slow going, but I think that is what saved us from. We had zero failures
That's
on
perfect.
that job, which I'm honestly quite surprised and proud of, to be
Yeah.
quite honest. I don't think I've
Yeah.
done so many density tests or adhesion tests ever on, like, it was seemed like every 5 minutes I was doing a different test of some sort just to make sure. Um, yeah, we took our time. We made sure everything was good. Uh, yeah, and then I think it took us about 28 to 30 days. I didn't actually count, but it took us 28 to 30 days spread out throughout the whole summer, because we had to pick and choose our days of working,
Mhm.
whether it be there's other trades kind of in the area that we had to spray, or weather, like we couldn't spray if it was raining. You can't spray if it's like super windy. We tried to spray in the wind because they had screwed tarps on the very top of the wall and draped them down. So we had a big scissor lift in underneath the tarp, and we were like, oh, we should be good. So we went in to spray on one. It wasn't like super windy, but it was windy enough. We went up on the lift, and the wind had blown the entire 60 by like 100-foot tarp up into underneath the lift. So we were like stuck up, and we had nothing. Like, we had to set the gun down, and it took two of us trying to like pick this entire tarp up out of the scissors of the lift so we could just get down and just shut our stuff off, because I was like, that was the end of that day. We'll never we'll never get down if we try to go back up. Um,
That is
that
scary.
was interesting.
Yeah.
And then the heat, that was another big one. It was a pretty hot summer, and then I don't know whose idea it was, but they used like a dark green tarp, and that got like quite hot with the sun beating down. So you had the sun and a hot black tarp on the back, and then you had a nice hot fresh foam in front of you, and it didn't take long to heat up that little scissor lift area that we were on. I think we averaged out at about 50 degrees Celsius, I'd say,
Whew.
was the average for like our ambient temperature.
Yeah.
Most of the days we sprayed with no hose heat because it was too hot. Like, it was coming out, and our hose heat would be off, and it was reading 110, 115 degrees. And we're like, oh, I need it at like 98 degrees right now, and I can't get it to go any lower. It's like, it's too hot. And
Yeah.
you just kind of roll with it and just do what you can, I guess. And so there's lots of days where I have to shut down for heat, or just because, like I say, if you spray too hot, things can start popping off, and just all the bad things happen. But yeah, we ended up finishing it. It was 20 sets, I believe, or 21, and one set of pour in place foam, which was pretty cool. I got to do that for the first time. Uh, we had to fill some beams. They were about, I think, 12 inches by 5 inches, and they just had little inch-and-a-half holes drilled like all along the side, and we just had to fill them in and gradually. Just, that was a learning curve, because that's a very slow reacting foam, and it was like, I wasn't sure. I've never done it before, so I'm watching YouTube videos and talking to guys from Genic, asking like, how do we do this, and just kind of getting some quick tips so we can just get it done. And that was cool. It was interesting. I found out that it will find any little crack to get into whatever it can, because we
Yeah.
filled these beams, and it was like basically on the eve of the building, and we filled the eve of the building, which was the beam, and we went to go off the roof, and we were walking down into through the building, and in the high part where we were just filling a beam up above, all on this fancy interior brick was just foam that had found its way through like where beams are welded together and stuff, and it was like dripping down all the fancy brick. And we luckily didn't get in any trouble for that, because that was actually, it ended up being something wrong. They missed something. So it was actually a happy accident that our foam found its way through, and
Okay.
they actually got that sealed. I was like, oh my God, how are we gonna clean this? It was like rough faced brick. It was like, oh my, I'm like,
No scraping
that's
that
not good.
that clean.
No, that's I think we're replacing some bricks on that one.
Oh man. I'm glad that wasn't on you guys.
Yeah, thankfully.
Well, that sounds like
Yeah, it
a
was a
really challenging project. Doesn't sound like something you want to do ever again.
no, no, not really. Like it's a good system, but it's a tough place here because like I said, we're an island, so humidity is always a thing.
Mhm.
So I think about we kept track of all the day, like the super site supervisor kept track of all the possible days that we could have sprayed. And out of the entire summer, we started, I think, the end of May, and then until September, there was about 60 workable days.
Wow.
So we did it in about half of like the action. So out of all of the summer, there was only 60 possible days that it wasn't either blowing crazy or raining or both. So
Is that
we got lucky
typical
that
your
we
guys'
got,
summers?
yeah, like it can be breezy. Like a lot of times it's pretty breezy. Rain can be either or, but it can change just as fast as it happens some days. So
Yeah.
like it's almost like tropical in the morning, and then it could be a blizzard at night. Like yesterday it was 20 degrees Celsius, and today we have freezing rain and everything looks glass. So it's it can change pretty quick, but yeah,
If you don't like the weather in Prince Edward Island, wait 5 minutes.
pretty much. Yeah.
That's funny, man. Um, Trevor, tell me, you've been in this business now for we'll say 15 years. If you could start over and do something different, what would that be?
I would say probably give a shit about what I'm doing earlier.
Mhm.
Like not because when I started, I was probably 18. Like when I started full time, it would have been after high school, fresh out of high school, partying the weekends, get paid on Friday, your paycheck's gone by Sunday kind of thing, just I just wish I kind of like gave a shit about what I was doing and not just looked at it as a paycheck. Like understand like, oh, I'm insulating a house, like learn kind of what I'm doing, like kind of care a bit more.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I just feel like I'd probably be in a lot better place, but not that I regret it
Yeah, of
by
course.
any means. It's just if I could change that, I wish I cared about it a bit earlier, but
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm at it now for sure.
Do you think you having I think you said your daughter when you're young,
Yeah,
you think that did that help you kind of like get a little bit more focused?
I think so, because that kind of snapped me into like, hey, like this is life's real. Like you're not a kid anymore. Like you have a kid now.
Mhm.
It's time to kind of gather yourself up. Like you have another human you have to keep alive and support, basically, which is like surprised I was doing that for myself at the time, but
You're
we
partying
we
and
made
enjoying life.
yeah, I was being a kid, I
Yeah,
guess,
for sure.
you know.
If you look back on things, you said if you were a little bit more focused, doing less partying, things of that nature, that things would be different. What do you think would be different? Like as far as if you have had gave a shit prior, would you be owning your own company or is that a goal of yours?
Possibly. I don't know if like owning my own company is something I want to do. Like because I like right now I do the spraying and like the working part of it. Like I don't really know much of business really.
Yeah.
Like I've done some pricing, like measure up jobs. Like I know how to do that kind of stuff. But like as far as like actual business side of things, I don't really know much. I'd like to learn, but I guess I can't really say I don't want to. It's kind of foreign to me, so I don't really know. But what I think would I meant by that would be that I'd maybe been able to get into spray foam earlier, where if I had cared about my job and insulating, maybe we would have had the talks of getting spray foam equipment before we did, and maybe like kind of progressed with the company a bit better. Like got the company in a better like earlier into the game, I guess I could say, because we're a little late at starting with spray foam on the island because there's like I said, it's not a big spot, and I think there's about 5 or 6 companies here already, and there
Wow.
was probably that before we started, and then yeah, so it took a bit for us to kind of get there where I feel like if I kind of cared more, maybe we could have gotten into it earlier and then have maybe 5 or 6 rigs on the road by this time instead of just one,
Yeah.
maybe.
Really get a hold of the market share and maybe
Yeah.
make people not think it's a good idea to come in and start a business on Prince Edward Island because you guys are already kicking everyone's ass. Because you got
Yeah.
a little bit slower start, it allowed the competition to
Mm.
come in. I'm curious, what's the population of Prince Edward Island?
I think it's about 150,000,
Okay.
maybe a little less. It's
Yeah.
growing, but yeah, it's not a very big spot.
Not for all those foam companies, is it?
No, no.
One of the things that I always like to ask guests, especially
This
for
episode is
those that are
sponsored by
just tuning
Spray
in,
Foam Genius
Trevor is
Marketing.
actually
Are
our
you a
first
spray foam
Canadian guest on
contractor
the
looking to get more
podcast.
leads and boost your presence on
and
Google? We've got you covered.
I
At
feel like
Spray
why
Foam
that's
Genius
important is
Marketing,
because
we help
the
business
Americans
owners
that
like
I've
you
talked
take
to
their company to the next level
on the
with
show,
targeted leads,
we've chatted about
high-converting
regulations
websites,
down here
SEO
in the States.
optimization, Google My Business Management. If you're in
And
the US, call us at 877
everybody has their different opinion. Trevor is
Or if you're in
actually,
Canada, call
in a country that has
844-741-FOAM.
regulations. Can you
Or
share
can
with
just
us what
email us
you
at
think the pros and the cons are with having
sprayfoamgeniusmarketing.com.
regulation that
Spray Foam Genius
Canada's
Marketing, turning clicks
together?
into customers.
Yeah, so in Canada, we have to get a certification to be able to purchase and spray foam. Um, and it's whenever so you do I think most of them are about a 2 to 3 day little class. You go sit in class, you learn about like what spray foam is, the different kinds, um, the different kinds of equipment there are. They kind of just a little crash course on the basics, and then depending on uh, depending on the length of the course, like you might be able to go and actually go over some of the real life equipment. And then you do a spraying test where you spray your 2 inch pass. So in Canada, we're limited to a 2 inch pass, like 2 inches per pass. Um, so we have to spray 2 inches, allow it to cool, and then apply more after that. So it can be a little more time consuming in some jobs in the States, which I guess because you guys can spray like 3, 4 inches sometimes with some of your high lift foams, right? So you'd be able to get jobs done a little quicker, but the downside is there's a lot of risk when you're spraying super thick because it can create a lot of heat. There's more potential for problems in my mind anyways. But yeah, like we have classes, you have to get them updated every year or every 5 years. You have to redo your course. Um, One other downside I think is it could be a little more in depth. I think because even now, like I'm still learning things to this day, like that are like they blow my mind that I'm like, why did I not know that on day one? Like, oh man, like that seems pretty important. Like
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like maybe a little more like hands-on training would be good too, like for new sprayers, like because you can see some of the work out there can be pretty horrendous sometimes, and all you have to do is pass a test, like a little multiple choice test,
In the
and
classroom.
you get your certification.
Yeah, and it's all classroom, so none of it's really
Yeah.
field testing?
So you do some field testing. You have to spray your cavity. Like my first time, we sprayed two cavities. So the first cavity we sprayed 2 inches, and then
Mhm.
the next cavity we sprayed 1 inch.
Got
And
it.
then so from those cavities, then we would do our. So we'd have to measure it, make sure our depth is good. We would do an adhesion test where we take a cylinder and you kind of core out right to the substrate, and then you put a hook in and you do a pull test on it to make sure that it passes the pull test of 1 kilogram.
Mhm.
And then you would do a density test on a chunk of your foam from that too. And
Okay.
then you just do that in front of the guy that's there from the third party uh, organization that does the testing, and making sure that they're what's it called? I can't think of the word. It's like a third party organization. The quality control basically is what they are. So they make sure you do all your tests, and then as long as you showed that you tried and weren't just whatever, you pretty well pass. Like as long as you knew what you were doing, I guess. Like it's, but then there's the fact of, so then now you got your card, you're good to go, but maybe you don't know how to insulate a house. Do you know what I mean? You can spray foam,
Yeah.
but you know what to insulate. Like you can go into a house, and some of these roof systems, there's bonus rooms and the roof kind of collides, and sheeting that gets put on is like the, say the carpenter sheeted a roof, but that roof is actually inside of an
Mhm.
attic or something, and so it can get kind of overwhelming sometimes to even just know where to spray, like where you have to foam and where not to foam, and
Yeah,
there's
there's no
it
training to
can,
that. This sounds like you've learned that just being on the job.
yeah, so basically like I knew how to insulate, and then that kind of helped me in the spray foam because I already knew how to insulate, so I knew what to do. It was just a new kind of insulating,
Yeah, makes
just a
sense.
different way to do it. So instead of putting a bat in the wall and then covering it with plastic, I'm just kind of doing each cavity as I go, and then go back and do it again because I have to spray. I can only spray 2 inches, so we'd have to do things twice or three times or four, depending on how thick we have to spray, right? So, but yeah, I'd say like they could almost do like a week of on the job training, like have somebody with the crew like on site that knows what they're doing, and then so that way if they have questions they can be like, hey, is this look right to you, or do
What's
you have
going
any
on with this
tips, like
problem?
spraying tips, just kind of things that could help them not fail,
Yeah.
basically, because it's a tough thing to do. It's not easy to spray, and not everybody can do it, and if you're failing right from the beginning, it's hard to want to continue, because there was times when we first started, we almost weren't sure if we wanted to continue, and all it was the gun that we were using was just, I don't know what it was to this day, but we started with the PMC AP2 gun, and that's just what we bought with our equipment. We had knew nothing, knew that was what they recommended.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we got that gun, and I'd say it would spray for at max 2 hours without giving you problems, and you'd have to like tear it fully apart, clean it, or else it was like spray and pat. Like you couldn't even get a pattern to stay. Like forget a circle, just anything. It would not stay the same. So it was a nightmare. And we had techs come down, everything. And one tech came down from Huntsman, which was the brand we were spraying at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just down for the day. He was like, yeah, we'll come figure it out. And he brought his Fusion AP gun. And so he was like, okay, we'll try to figure your stuff out and then we'll try this gun, see what happens, blah, blah, blah. So we're spraying and it's doing the same garbage where it's like sprayed good for a little bit and then just for whatever reason it would just go to hell. So he's there thankfully, and then he starts, maybe it's temperature things, and he's like got our hose cut open and checking different connections and everything. No, everything's checking out. So we switched, literally took that gun off, put his Fusion gun on, and I sprayed for 45 minutes and never touched the drill bit once. And I was honestly blown away. And all we did was take the gun off and put his Fusion on. And just from that moment, I was like, well, we're going to have to switch guns because I cannot fight with that anymore. And I honestly don't know what it is. There's people that use that gun. I've seen videos and it just didn't like me.
You still spray with the Fusion PC?
Yeah, we got the PC now, which is it's the upgrade, or some people call it a downgrade, just because it's a little simpler to work with. Which the reason we got that gun because it has the cartridge and it just kind of simplifies things. And when it kind of got popular, came out, it was just me on the rig, so I didn't really have a helper. I didn't have that much help, so whatever saved me time was a bonus, because if I don't have to clean 12 different parts and just clean like three, that's way better for me, because I by myself I gotta spray and then clean up and just kind of get done what I can. So that was a good one for me. And yeah, we still use it to this day.
I'm curious, do you think so I'm guessing the Canadian government got involved with the regulation, is that correct?
I think so. So there was a bunch of, because spray foam kind of gets a bad name just from improper installs, and in
Mhm.
the past having formaldehyde and just being poisonous and bad for you, and
Yeah.
like that. I still get questions like, oh, does that have formaldehyde in it? Like, no, like that's hasn't had that for years, like
1960.
years. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
right?
but yeah, so they got it in the legislation, and that's kind of why we're limited to the 2-inch passes. So like we have to keep a log of everything. It's a daily work record. So
Yeah.
we keep track of our batch numbers of the foam, the date like that we're doing it, like expiry dates of the foam, our environment conditions. So like the humidity and temperature, like the substrate temperature. And then we have to do our density tests and all that. So we have to keep track of all that. And then we keep them for 7 years, the records. So
Kind of
that's part of our,
like a truck driver
yeah,
keeping a log of their driving and when they took naps and,
yeah,
slept and things like that.
yeah,
Do you feel like it's been, I mean, obviously it doesn't sound like this is new to you. It's always been in place. Do you think
yeah.
it's been a good thing for Canada with the regulations?
I think so. I think so because, like I said, at least like the training might not be very extensive, but the people that do the training, they're not going to just pass anybody, right? Like if somebody, like if they see somebody and they're like, that guy's doesn't give a shit. He's just not paying attention. He just sprayed 7 inches thick on his little spray pass that he had to do. Like they're not going to give that guy his certification. And
Mhm.
then if you don't have certification, you technically aren't supposed to be able to buy foam. So that, like there's that where you have a little less kind of like cowboy stuff going on, where like anybody can buy a rig and spray foam in the States, kind of, where here it's a bit more restricted, which is a bit better because we don't have as many kind of big horrific jobs like removal stuff, and you don't hear as much bad about it because of that. Um, it
Yeah,
does
I
happen,
was
but
curious if it kept some of these people out of the industry that don't know what the heck's going on, because I know like down here, I know nothing about spray and foam. I could, if I had 60 to 100K, I could go find a rig and have a spray foam business tomorrow. Be screwing
yeah,
up a whole bunch of things. So,
yeah,
you feel like that's kind of eliminated that? Because I talk with a lot of people throughout the week, a lot of, spray foam contractors, and they're like, "Man, I'm just getting underbid." There's a lot of people
mhm,
that are starting companies, like, they're bidding cheaper than I can even get the foam. I don't know what the heck they're doing, and it's kind of the Wild West down here these days.
yeah, yeah. So like, I find it has helped kind of maybe not eliminate it, but ease it a little bit
Mhm.
because, like I say, there's a little bit more hoops to kind of jump through to be able to get to that point. Um, where I find it would be maybe not hard, but it'd be a little tricky for you to find like a really cheap uncertified foam in Canada,
Yeah.
where it's like it seems like there's a lot of different like brands, and it's just a lot more free down there where anybody can buy anything. Where
Mhm.
up here you can't really just go and buy so and so's foam, or like, so I spray Genic. I can't just go and spray Huntsman. I need to make sure that the my certification matches up with the same third party certification that they have, and like there's just kind of more hoops to it and
Yeah, a little bit more
things.
friction,
Yeah.
that doesn't make it as easy. How
Mm.
many do you know approximately how many foam companies are represented up in Canada? I know at the SPFA show in Daytona this year, it's my understanding that there was like 35 plus companies of foam represented there, at least, I was told.
Oh, jeez. Wow. Yeah, I'm not sure. Like how many different brands of foam?
Correct, yeah.
Um,
I mean, do you guys have that many up there? It sounds like it's a lot less because of the Canadian standards, the foam,
yeah,
the
I don't
chemicals,
believe
things
there's that many. There's I think 6 that I could probably name that are, like, Canadian. So Genex Canadian, there's Elasticam, Grizzly Gold, um, Soprema,
Mhm.
and I think there's a couple others, but there's not, like, this mass amount of different brands, which is another kinda good thing too, so it kinda keeps a little bit more control on the industry, so you don't have just untested foam going into someone's house, so
Yeah.
making people sick potentially, or like things like that. But it still happens. It st- still happens up here. Like, can't eliminate it completely, but you
Well,
can kind of slow it.
as long as we have humans doing your job, there's always gonna be mistakes. The second
Yeah.
robots take over, then maybe, but I don't wanna think about those days, the future that might be.
Yeah.
Would you say that if the states implemented some regulations, it would be a good thing? 'Cause that's kind of controversial down here. I know there's people
Yeah.
that are like, "Yes," but then the other part's like, "No," because they don't want the government involved. My thing is, from just having conversations and being somewhat, I guess I would consider myself a little bit of an outsider because I'm not a spray foam contractor. I think it's best to maybe get some form of regulation that's put together by like let's say an SPFA or something of that nature in order for, because I think once the suits get involved in Washington D.C. for us, that there's going to be a lot of people that are making decisions for spray foam contractors that have no idea about spray foam.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think it would be beneficial to the US for sure. Um, Probably not the government, like you said, but like a group like the SPFA, if they like agreed to be, say, the governing body, and
Mhm.
if you have their like certification, then you are good to spray foam, and kind of similar. to up here because like I spray Gen X foam, but my certification is through a third party company, which is not affiliated with Gen X or affiliated with anybody else. They're kind of watch over and kind of make sure. So that could be something good for you guys is to have that kind of governing body, kind of just kind of keeping kind of watch over certain things, like maybe not as tight of maybe rules like it, but it would be beneficial maybe to get like better training set up, things
Yeah.
like that, like kind of make it like a maybe even a college course,
Yeah.
like a trade, like because there is a lot to it, like it's, you're not just spraying foam. Some days you're pretending to be an electrician trying to fix your hose heat, or you're being a mechanic trying to fix your generator that just decided to blow up on you, or
Yeah.
things like that. You could be anything, or you're a counselor because your helper is sad and he doesn't want to scrape anymore or something.
You get to wear all forms of hats, it seems like,
Yeah,
man.
you could be anything.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think you're absolutely right. It's interesting to hear your take as a Canadian, as we've had, a handful of guests on the show that have expressed kind of their opinion about this, and I always think it's a really good topic, because I feel like the United States needs some form of regulation in order to kind of shut down the wild west. So I appreciate the take on that. Trevor, we've been going now for probably close to an hour. It's been a great conversation, man. For those that want to check out the butter that you be spraying, how do they get in contact? I know is also as well with this community that, just like Chaz and Brett and some of these other guys have helped you. I'm sure you're willing to help others. How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on TikTok. You can check out my TikTok. It's Trevor Cochrane spray foam.
Hmm.
Or you can hit me up on Facebook, shoot me a message anytime. I'm willing to help. If I don't have an answer, I usually know somebody that does. So sometimes if I don't have an answer, I can ask somebody and then get back to you, or point you in the right direction of somebody that might know. But yeah, Facebook,
Okay.
I'm on there. TikTok anytime.
Yeah, TikTok's been amazing. Make sure you guys follow Trevor. Check out his TikTok. It's like he said, there's other people that paved the way for him. And when he does post his videos or photos within these groups, everybody's always raving about it. So if you're looking to learn how to spray better, he's definitely somebody to check out. So Trevor, I appreciate you coming on the show, brother. It's been a pleasure of mine. Been amazing. So have yourself a great rest of your evening.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, take care.
Awesome.